Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. We're going to look at footwork today, and specifically how to adjust your footwork to make your punching more effective either directly or immediately following a kick. So if that's something that you think you could improve, stay with us for today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. So today's topic actually came from a member of our academy in our YouTube members group. So the idea here is we're looking to solve the problem of getting stuck in a particular facing. So obviously in ITF sparring, we're trying to dictate the distance a little bit depending on the technique. So when we're far out, we're going to be a bit more side facing to use side kicks and all the array of kicks that we have. And the more full facing we get, then that's a problem because you're going to become more open. So we want to be a bit more side facing. But then when we try to get into that closer range and get the hands, for example, it becomes a problem if you can't adjust. If you still are stuck in that side facing, it's a big issue. So we're going to have a look at that problem today. We're going to have you some ideas on the setup that maybe you can solve the issue beforehand. And then also some ways of almost like coming around the problem if you get stuck there, some solutions if it happens.
Very cool. So the very first part is let's just show you a little bit of what it looks like when you get caught. And everyone's been caught in this situation. You know what it feels like.
Yeah, it's like so here Julio actually adjusts and does what we want to do in today's topic, where Rustic in red is stuck side facing because the distance to him, he feels like it's a kicking range, and then obviously Julio gets through that range pretty quick and Rustic just gets caught on the hop.
Yeah, and another similar example here from team sparring.
Yeah, and obviously like this is a timing issue as well. Yeah,
I thought it was team sparring. Actually, no, that one's individual for Adam.
Yeah, so obviously it's a timing thing as well, but being stuck side on is never a good idea. So we're going to show you some ways on the setup, how you can maybe solve this problem firsthand, and then we're going to show you some ideas on solutions if you're stuck there afterwards.
Sure.
So here's the setup. You see Adam again in red. Adam Shelley, multiple time world champion. He starts at a bit more of a side facing. So you see when he gets the hands, he's way more direct with his body position. And now in this particular stance as well, right versus right leg lead, you get away with it much more. But you'll see some examples where if it's the opposite, left v right, then it becomes a much more of an issue. But you see the setup here of Adam directly. His front foot, his toes are facing a bit more towards his opponent as opposed to completely side facing. So that's one setup option.
And just before he actually goes to hands, you watch it in the slow motion, you'll see the adjustment of the front foot. Now the back foot is more subtle, but you'll see the front foot go from toes almost side facing to almost full facing. So just before he goes to hands here, you'll see it, the foot adjusts and in he goes. So that is, as you said, it's opening out the body. It's mean that you can more easily engage that second hand, and also means he can be a little bit faster because he doesn't have a blocking foot. His front foot is contributing, so it means he can get through and the side kick can be a little bit faster.
Yeah, he gets a nice bit of momentum there as well. Here's Daniel Diaula in blue. So he was very famous for using his hands effectively. And look at his setup. He's almost in that full facing into the half facing, but he's definitely not side facing. And his toes are facing forward. So just showing you the setup here, the difference of side facing versus half facing. So Alexander here from Norway in red is way more side facing, as you can see. And then his backhand is in his play. So you can see Daniel's backhand is ready and loaded.
Yeah, you can bring both hands into play right away. And we can see here in this example where being caught, even when you're getting that first score, being that side facing has left the second hand out of play here for Norway.
Yeah, so the girl in red obviously gets the point and it's very clear, but she only gets the one, so she's not maximising on her scores. And at the high level, this could be the difference between winning and losing. You want to maximise your opportunities because you don't get that many of them. So being stuck side facing, obviously you don't get that opportunity to bring the backhand in.
Yeah, and it's even there for her opponent there in blue, the Norwegian girl. Like she ends up in a position where she could go, but because her back foot is still kind of stuck there facing backwards, she can't push off, she can't go forwards when the opportunity presents itself. So her positioning has let her down there as well. So yeah, she's missed out on that first point, but then there's a little bit more to it. She's still stuck because the feet haven't adjusted as she got to the ground. The intent wasn't there to go forwards.
So that's kind of the idea on the setup. Now we're going to look at some ways you can maybe look at a better adjustment. So here's Cian launching with the backhand. So this is an example where we see it's more important because he has to get his foot to the outside. Now Anis does switch stance, but still Cian has to get his left foot outside for him to get engaged, but he can bypass that by directly going to the backhand. So that obviously opens everything up. A tip for this is to carry your backhand a bit higher. So you see Cian has it hovering around his chest. If it's down by your hip at the back, like it was at the very start of this combination, then you won't be able to engage it quick enough.
For sure. And we do have the clip of him going directly to the backhand, bypassing that front leg as well.
So that's a nice little option, just directly off the backhand as well. So nice option if you're struggling and you're getting stuck with just the front hand, then you can adjust. And it's a clear point, obvious, and then there's a tie-up where it's kind of equal. So obviously he gets the clear distinction here, and it's a nice way just to adjust the body.
And maybe one of the tips that you can kind of draw from that as well is if you are struggling yourself to bring both hands into play, and usually the continuity comes once the backhand comes in, because if you can score the backhand, you can easily go again with the front hand or bring the kicks into play. The problem is sometimes you'll get caught and you're only able to engage the front hand because of your body positioning, your foot positioning. So if you have it in your mind that you're going to start with your backhand, the rest of the body has to adjust itself around it, and either you'll adjust the foot on the way in, you'll adjust your kick on the way in. We'll have some tips around that, or even like Cian's example there, just the intent of throwing the backhand forces the rest of the body into a position that just contributes rather than working against it.
Absolutely, and that's something we're going to look at this week as well in our members academy. So we're going to show people exercises and ways they can train this to make it better in their game. And this is one of the things we'll be looking at very specifically, of how to get going with that backhand off side kicks and directly as well. So our members will be able to get some exercises to help them with that.
Very good. So let's have a look at some of the tricks or the tips that we can give people to make sure you're getting the hands engaged more fully and you're not getting caught in that side facing position. So we'll start maybe with a blast from the past and an old school way of doing that.
Yeah, so Neil Ernest was obviously 2 points for jump punch back then, but as well it's just a nice option. If you're really caught and you don't have the time, if you jump backwards and adjust the body as you jump back, it just gives you that little bit more time to adjust. So that is one option if you're getting stuck side facing a lot. Jump back and see can you adjust the body more full facing as you do it.
Jumping forwards in time to the last Europeans here, we can kind of see the adjustment of the front foot, the kicking foot, to make it easier to engage with the hands. And what Simon's looking at here is he's kind of sacrificed the side kick a little bit. You know, it's flickier, the toes are probably up a little bit, and he's pulling the foot to the floor in that forward sprint position so that he can engage with the hands. And, you know, really that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of, you know, having the adjustment in mind from the right from the get-go.
That's the ideal situation. So you see his toes directly forwards, so he gets that momentum and drives through. Nice adjustment here as well at the same time from Romania, but that's exactly what. Yeah, but that's what we're looking for from Blue in perspective of Shimon.
But yeah, that's almost Romania doing what we were saying with Neil Ernest there, where he's buying himself a little bit of time by jumping backwards to adjust his facing. So these are kind of reiterating some of the principles of, you know, if you can just be taller in your engagement position, I don't mean just taller than your opponent, but if you can be standing taller as the kick comes in, you have a much better chance of being the one that gets the hands into play in a favourable position. Yeah,
because you're on top and it's very hard to punch above, especially when your head is not in line. So it's like you're almost caught in no man's land for a second, you're a step behind. So that always helps. And obviously you can't dictate if you're taller or not, but you can dictate your posture. So that's important.
So on that vein, we're looking at trying to have the hands in a better position than your opponent when you do engage.
Buys you just a half a second, doesn't it? And that's all the difference.
And sometimes it can be just, you know, you default into carrying your hands low, and the girls haven't done a fantastic job of getting the front hand high, but it's just a case of when the clash happened, the person who did get her front hand higher was the Polish girl, and in blue there. And so what that does do for her is it means that she's getting into that prime position above her opponent's hand. So if your hand is higher, it's very, very hard for your opponent to get through that and into contact with the head.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of examples so far here from the female division. So I feel like if you're a female watching this and you're competing, this is something that you need to work on, because if it's clearly going to be an advantage for you, because some of the girls get really stuck side facing because they really favor the psychic position. Usually the girls have great psychics.
Yeah.
So that's something that to be aware of for you to get the advantage. You need to be able to master this skill.
I do think as well, because the girls like to kick into contact and are less fond of going directly into contact with hands, it brings up that dynamic quite a bit more than you'd see it with the guys, where the guys are looking to kick and use that to lead into the hands, but they very rarely clash and stand with the hands, or clash and get directly into the hands that way. So that being more of a feature of the women's game, you have those principles of, look, can you be more flexible? Can you stand taller? Can you be on top? Can you carry your hands a bit higher? Can you look for landing in the better position? So I think those become very, very important for the girls.
Yeah, one other trick that we have as well from Keen Ince gave an example earlier is as you lead off the side kick, you can almost put your toes slightly up to make it a bit of a hybrid. So that will adjust your foot to the outside then as well. So you see here, see his side kick now toes up, and that helps him. I know he comes in with the backhand, but still, it allows him to adjust the body way more full facing because the toes are up. So that's something that you can do and just be mindful of when you use your front leg.
And taking that to the extreme of, if you're finding it really difficult for a while and to get that contact into hands, or get that continuity into hands, very, very simply, every now and again it can become a turning kick. And when the turning kick bounces off of the front side of the body, the chest, like that, it lands you automatically in that position where you're outside your partner's front foot, and you can easily go directly into hands. So you might, rather than changing mid kick, you might just change it and make a turning kick early on, in order to let you continue to hands.
Yeah, you have a launch pad there, as we can see, but I think you make an important point here every now and again, because if you do this all the time, somebody's going to be aware of it and they're going to catch you out. So yeah, definitely you want to have the side kick more often, so every now and again is a good idea.
This is just one for the receiving end. So sometimes you're not the first one out of the blocks, and your opponent gets there first, and then it becomes very, very important to be the one that's accurate, I think.
Yeah, that's true, because like sometimes the distance is important, and just because she had that little bit of time extra because the distance was longer, she could adjust in red, and then she was able to be more full facing. And it, like, if it comes down to a side facing person trying to punch versus a full facing, the full facing person is always going to win out, so it gives you a massive advantage.
Yeah, and I think the big thing though is, we look at pull and pushing forwards here, and they get the advantage here, but the first punch doesn't land, which means Norway gets to land the first punch, and that is a big advantage in any altercation and in any exchange. The first punch that lands, it's a huge thing, and that can be accuracy. But we saw that in a big way with Zach Espy being, a little taller, a little bit more direct, and using the full range out of the arm and shoulder. And what it meant is, as well, they're very, very clear scores. So, the adjustment there is having the eyes wide open and not flinching and rolling the head as you go, so that you can see your target the whole way to the finish. Getting the chin right by the shoulder, getting the shoulder forward, and getting that long, accurate first punch on contact. It's hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and this is a vital skill, because we've seen the very last clip. It was the end of the match, and it was something where they were trying to get scores. The both coaches going crazy. So this is a skill you need in your back pocket if you're down and you need to get the hands and maybe get that last ditch score, that you need to be able to adjust. If you just go in with the single front hand on your side facing, you're not going to get the return. So that's something that you need in your back pocket.
So now that we've kind of discussed the problem and kind of illustrated some of the solutions and that, how do you go about bringing this into your own training and making this something that's part of your regular training routine?
Yeah, so we looked at the setup first of all, so that's one way we can go about it, and then we can also have some of the solutions. But what we're going to try look at this week for our members is how to adjust that foot almost seamlessly. So how to set yourself up in a good way that your front leg and your adjustments are coming almost naturally. So we're going to look at how you can set that up with various ways. And the reason for this is it's more of a conceptual thing. So if you can have the mindset before you launch, it's very, very effective. But then eventually you want to ingrain that in how you move. And then the concept of this will become very evident. So one of the examples that we looked at is we did some sparring of people full facing versus side facing, and then the light bulb moment goes off and people realize that, okay, this is very effective and this being side facing is a big problem, and we build on from there.
Excellent, excellent. So if you're interested in seeing how all of that is done in practice, of course, at the end of this video, go sign up for our YouTube Academy and join the other members there and see what extra stuff we have to offer. Absolutely, it's going to be fun this week, just looking at the different options that we have, and we have some great videos in the pipeline for you in the future as well. As always, folks, if there's something you want to explore, discover with us, say something in the comments, like and subscribe to this video. It shows a little bit of support, and we're very, very happy to tackle any of the problem areas, the pain points, and any suggestions that people have. So hit us up.
Definitely. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Bye now.